video, what we spoke about was mainly the format of the debate, right? So we spoke about how exactly you would go about writing an Oxford debate, and we talked about a bit of the mindset and how exactly to think when you want to write up an argument. But this is where I wanted to elaborate more, right? So I've taken up a different motion today. This motion has a lot of material on both sides of it, both for and against. So I thought it would be easier to explain. So the motion today is today compulsions override personal choices. Now, in this motion, obviously, what's the first thing that we usually do? We first look for impact phrases. We have three impact phrases over here: compulsions, override, and personal choices. Now, when you read the motion, you need to strike upon one simple realization which will differentiate and separate your speech from each and every single speech over there, i.e., this is your framing. Your framing, that is the way that you put forward your arguments, and in this way make your speech better and different from the others, right? In greater tournaments like WTC, WSTC, many of the ESL speakers win their rounds only by framing and nothing else. So over here, what will our framing be? Our framing will be the fact that today we will be considering only the cases of people or artists who had both compulsion as well as a personal choice, and only in those cases will we associate the motion with it. So consider an example. If someone comes up to the podium and says that, okay, MS Dhoni had compulsion as well as personal choice, but he went with a personal choice and he became great, that is not a viable argument. You know why? Because why do you think Dhoni did not go to cricket at the beginning? He did not go to cricket at the beginning because of rural instability, in order to give his or her parents a better life, right? It's not like he did not go to cricket for some other reason, because he knew establishing themselves in cricket would take time. Okay, and they did not have a huge saving accounts per se, so he knew that the financial factor of engaging himself, the only earning made in the family at that point, would be very detrimental to their family's overall safety and survival, which is why he went to a ticket collector where he could first establish his financials, and then he went into cricket where he then thought that, okay, now I'm trying to establish myself and such. So at the point that he made that crucial decision, only compulsion was with him. There was no personal choice, ladies and gentlemen. There was no opportunity for personal choice to grow. We need to consider cases today where compulsions and personal choices were both in equal amounts in front of them, but compulsions were still at a higher priority. So, first, this is how I started in the introduction. As I said, introduction has to be something that creates a huge impact, right? It falls like a bomb on the audience. So, what I did is usually in the beginning, what I try to do is I try to define the ambit of the debate. So, what I've done over here is debating tells me to begin with an interesting fact. Guess what? The fascinating fact about today's motion is that the motion does not have an ambit, because the motion today addresses every single sector, community, and division of society. And that is pretty evident, right? But when you associate the word ambit of the debate having no exact point, it creates a separate effect. So over here, I have taken more of an EPD approach comparatively than an Oxford, but I would definitely discourage you from doing that if you're doing a Kolkata debate. I've done this purely for making this video. So, three arguments. Firstly, as I said, when you have made your introduction, you have your motion, you consider three spheres of life, three different cases, or whatever, three different arguments, and then I have to solve the burdens. First, I've come to the argument of the rural population of India. Now, see, there's quite an amount of problem over here. While on one side, you'll see the general speeches avoiding or rather ignoring this particular sector of society, you will also see that people speak of rural places as people who are not able to eat, who are not able to survive, who are not able to do anything. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not actually true. Nearly a major part of them have actually evolved into lower middle classes, but the part who just do not have any other choice but to simply eat in order to survive and such, only they form the extreme rural part of a society, and that is not the part that I'm speaking about right now. That is something that I won't be coming to actually. And you know why? Because even in those cases, compulsions do exist, but personal choices don't. Even in those cases, When you have to earn for your family, else they will die of starvation. When you have to earn for your family, else your family member might die in the hospital. In those cases, you have to earn money in any way that is possible. Any way that is possible. So whether you do not have the opportunity of following your personal choice in the first place, so that will be outside the ambit of the debate itself. What will be inside, however, is the lower middle class that I was going to talk to you about. What do they have? Over there, a compulsion is redefined as a responsibility that is thrust upon you, because each and every single before you that came into the world went with that responsibility over themselves. Because when you grow up, you do not only have to support your parents, your relatives, etc., in order to guarantee a free flow of income, in order to survive and sustain them, but you also need a proper job, which is not in accordance with your personal choice, right? So there is this whole concept of maintaining the safety of your investments versus the amount that your investments pay out in the long run. And what most parents urge people to do is reduce the risk of their investments, right, and guarantee some sort of safety in investments. But what mostly kids try to do is maybe look at investments that pay out more in the long run. Now, that might not be stable, but at the end of the day, that is a personal choice, right? Exactly. The same line with our personal choices. But even in such a case, compulsions take a higher priority as compared to our personal choice, because the job that we do is for money and not for fun. Exactly. So if I'm not saying that a lower middle class person can go into an MBA, but suppose he wants to be, suppose, consider this. They stay in a suburban area and they do not have much choice. He hasn't had much exposure. He or she has gone to a government school, but they spend the time around automobiles, and from here and there they've heard that there are automobile engineers and he or she wants to be one. But the situation in their house is such that their parents force them that, okay, no, why should you do that? Because we do not know about it, we do not live in the proper city, we do not have the proper exposure, so you should do something else, as in this, which in which we have quite an amount of experience, because your father has been doing it. Even if he or she complies, their child sees them complying and they will then do the same, and this goes on for generations and generations without any nourishment. Now again, right now I could easily say that this goes on without any nourishment and this is bad, right? But that would also be outside the ambit of the motion. Does the motion today ask me to say that, okay, compulsions overriding personal choices is bad or good? No. The motion simply asks me to state what is in the present situation, and by logic this is something that happens in the present situation. That was my first argument, right? The lower middle class compared to the rural areas of India. Moving to my second argument, the middle and the upper classes. The pressure here comes from different ways. They might not have the pressure of survival, the pressure of hunger. Do you know what they have? They have peer pressure. They have pressure from their homes. Like a person that is passing on from class 10 to class 11. They have to choose their streams, right? A majority of my friends have chosen science simply not because they got 90%, no, simply because their other friends chose it, simply because they were forced from their homes. Why didn't they have a personal choice? I'm pretty sure they had a personal choice. Maybe they wanted to earn money later in life, maybe they wanted to become a chartered accountant, maybe they wanted to study humanities, or maybe they did not want to be in the academic sector at all. There were other choices that they could have done, but they went with their compulsions, simply because their parent might think, okay, that this is more stable, or because they thought that, okay, if I don't choose this, my friend will look down upon me and I'll be outside this particular social group. So that is another case where the compulsion to do something, the compulsion to stay up with society, the compulsion to stay at par with your peers overrides your personal choice of having some sort of achievement. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, a popular argument that I face over here is that peer pressure will only make you better. You know what? It might, but that's again outside the debate. It might make me better, but it's still overriding my personal choice. That is, it is in excess of my personal choice. So the delta of the two is in favor of the compulsion of the society and not in favor of my personal choice. So I eventually go with the decision that makes me sad, does not make me mentally happy. Moving on to my last argument, right? Rules in general. And if I say rules in general, many people might even bring up cases. Okay, so these particular rules are made in order to ban some sort of violence. So what do you mean by rules, right? So I do not mean those kind of rules. In order to come specifically to rules, guess the case of entrance examinations, right? In entrance examinations, what do you think happens? You opt for computer science. You want computer science. But then at the end of the day, you don't get it. You know why? Because you're not able to perform well in a particular examination. Now, see, I am not saying at all that IIT JEE exam is not important, or whether it is important, or whether you should prepare for it. This is not an IIT JEE promotion video, ladies and gentlemen. Let me make that clear. What I'm saying is this is another case where the compulsion of the particular rule makes you simply override your personal choices. And this is the most common example that was right in front of our eyes, but we could not spot it. Consider any particular rule in general. Suppose you go to an office, you cannot drink juice in your office. That is again compulsion overriding your personal choice, right? I'm not supporting acts of violence and such, but I'm talking on a very small scale. So any sort of rule would, you could say that compulsions would be overriding your personal choice. Now, whether that is bad or good is again different, because that lies outside the ambit of the debate. But the system has been made in a way that compulsions will always overweigh, or rather override, your personal choices. And as was in the case of entrance examinations, as I was saying, the compulsion of the rules, the compulsion of the cutoff will definitely override your personal choices as well. In fact, what happens many times is that entrance examinations preparations usually start in the 11-12 period gap, right? So what then the compulsion of scoring really good marks in the entrance examination will lead you or your parents to make you sacrifice some of the other essential parts of your life as a teenager, like many people hit a roadblock. People stop cycling, people stop playing, people stop talking to others, right? People stop things that made them happy. So these are places where compulsion, such as the compulsion of scoring really well in the examination, would override their personal choice of maybe being happy, going outside, playing with people. That made my three arguments. So, firstly, I had my argument for the lower middle class. Secondly, I had the argument for the upper middle class. And thirdly, I had the argument for any sort of compulsion, that is rules in general, entrance examinations in particular, which concerns a huge section of the youth today. So three arguments, and I satisfied their burdens by saying, for the rural one, I satisfied my burdens by saying that okay, their parents have always been poor, and thereby they value the risk of their particular investment. Sorry, they do not like the risk of their investment, so they would like the safety of their investment and their money earning capabilities rather than the risk that is involved with it. And thereby their parents and the child has seen their parents put their everything into their son's education, right, or their son's upbringing, so they will probably listen to their parents advice. And point number three, and by listening to the conflicted between listening to their parents advice and going for a safer sort of income as compared to their kind of riskier investment that goes against what their parents want, but something that makes them happy, they eventually choose the one that makes their parents happy. So that's three arguments that were burdens that were satisfied. Moving on to the next one, for the middle and upper classes, I explained the problem of peer pressure and how it contributes to the compulsion side of it. I explained the problem of the whole above the 90% get the science thing, that part of it, which satisfies another burden. And the third burden again over here, how this exactly plays into our psychology and why it makes us feel that we need to keep in par with the society and with our peers in order to make ourselves feel better rather than doing exactly what makes ourselves better, right? So that's three burdens again over there. And coming down to my third argument, that is compulsion, that is rules. Obviously, there's entrance examinations where where your first burden will be that you sacrifice some of the other stream for this entrance examination in the first place, and number two, where you sacrifice other parts of your life in small amounts in order to get good marks in the particular examination, right? And one of the main problems that I've seen in these cases is people often do not know the amount of work they have to put into a particular examination in order to make it big, so they end up either putting too much or too less, both of which hurt their chances at scoring well in the examination. But in turn, in that illusion that there is a compulsion hanging over their heads, they make drastically bad choices for their life, where the illusion of the compulsion of the exam overrides their personal choices, which was not required in the first place. So that can be a third burden, right? So I had three arguments, three burdens each, and I satisfied all of them. So my arguments are nearly irrefutable. In order to conclude, I've written that as a member of the proposition, I would like to mention that the debate today is not about the fact as to whether the compulsions overweigh personal choices is a good thing or whether it's a bad thing. As I said, in the conclusion, always re-clarify your stance. So that is exactly what I've done, right? The debate today lies in the fact that whether it is happening or not in the first place, and we are just here to establish that yes, absolutely, it is something that is happening on a daily basis, something that is happening in every nook and corner of the world and in every sector and division of society. So I hope that really clears up this side of the emotion, and I hope you guys will like it. And if you do want an against version of it, feel free to let me know in the comments. And I won't ask you to like and subscribe for other fun videos, but feel free to contact me anytime for any doubts. I'm always available.